SABC News political editor Mzwandile Mbeje was in conversation with Floyd Shivambu, as you saw there, and he now joins us to unpack this further. Mzwai, quite a lot of interesting things that he says. Yes, he does maintain the fact that, they were misled about the former president, and he says that it was a different stakeholders, as he calls them, that would have misled them. But one looks at this decision to now make him the Secretary General. But their statement is short of telling us who is now the national organizer. Did you manage to get that out of him?
Well, not yet. And I guess it's subject to being discussed. And then I think once all that is finalized, we'll get to know. But I think for now, I'm sure they wanted to get this out of the way because this is a very important position of the Secretary General. And I mean, it's the heart and soul and the engine of the organization. So clearly, that's where the focus is. So we still wait and see. And remember, it's just been communicated today.
And it talks about the positioning of the party, as we're seeing quite a number of high-profile people joining it. But at the same time, you think about this position that he now occupies. Yes, it did well in KwaZulu-Natal. It did, well in Mpumalanga. You look at Gauteng as well. There has been a showing somewhat. But let's look at its positioning now ahead of the local government elections. Every political party is trying to do this, but you look at him right now and the challenge that he now has to grow the structures.
Oh yes, and you can see that I think their strategy as well in the past few maybe weeks. The former president, the leader of the MK party, has somewhat taken a bit of a back seat. And then someone like Floyd Shivambu is really the main person. Now, for him to be given the position of the Secretary General, you can see the vote of confidence that I think President Zuma has in Floyd Shivambu. Of course, it's a collective decision. But to me, this tells me that their strategy is now to grow beyond their base. And I think you can see they are targeting, I'm sure, the next big projects in this instance, which I think is Polokwane and it's Limpopo and the Eastern Cape, given that they have some strong presence in Gauteng, Mpumalanga, KZN, and so elsewhere they are still weak, but they do have the presence. And when you look at the fact that a province like Northwest, they've also won some awards there. So that does tell you their growth strategy. And to even give the responsibility to people like Floyd, and now Advocate Mpofu is coming to the fold. We don't know where he will be assigned. But it is quite interesting. As the next big project now, Bongiwe, is the local government elections in 2026. So you can see that a lot of work is being put in.
Although when I was watching the interview, when you were trying to press to say, are you going to be poaching from where you come from, the pool of where you come from, and he says, no, we're not poaching anybody, but if anyone decides to come and join us, we'll welcome them. It's very hard to believe, though, that there isn't any poaching.
No, certainly. I mean, certainly, I'm sure the people you've worked with for the longest time and people you understand, you know their strengths, you know the kind of positive impact that they'll make. So you can't not reach out to them. And you can see, because they have decided that they will work together with the parties like the EFF. You remember in Parliament they have what they call the Progressive Caucus. So because they've decided to work together with some of those organizations, they will not necessarily be very public about what they want to do. But you can see that despite the public pronouncements, the relationship between the MKP and the EFF, because the MKP is taking from the EFF, and I don't think that goes down very well with the leadership of the EFF. So those issues will always come up. So that's the sense I got, that as much as they are saying they want to work with everyone, but there will be a bit of resistance in some quarters. And
especially because they are the official opposition in Parliament right now. They are the people that are leading the charge. So certainly you do want to grow that if you're a political party to ensure that you don't lose that position.
Oh yes, and as we go to the next local government elections in 2026, and I think that's what they'd want to be consolidating. I mean, they already have a presence in 3 provinces, a significant presence. So I'm sure they would want to expand that using the fact that they already are accepted elsewhere. So now maybe go to where you are not so much accepted. So when you look at how, for example, someone like Floyd will play the role, now he's the Secretary General. So clearly you can see the kind of growth. And this is someone who's been with the Youth League, with the EFF, with the YCL, with the ANC. So a lot of experience, and still young, still energetic. And I'm sure they would want to tap into that kind of knowledge and that organizational structures. I mean, if you look at how the EFF is and the role that Floyd played, now MKP is still a fairly new party, and you want to grow it. I mean, I was looking at some of the, for example, how they refer to their leader, former President Zuma, President General. And you go back to the EFF when it was in the EFF, how the commissars, the commander-in-chief, so you can see they will always take a bit of that. The hand of Floyd's here and there, you can see it. And I'm sure that's what they'll want to use to their advantage to grow the party.
So we're done with this interview, but you have one more job to do. You've been bringing us a whole lot of what is going on behind the scenes in the last couple of days. Now we wait to know who the other 2, who the EFF leader is expecting to leave the party soon are, because I'm sure speculation is rife there.
You know, it's very difficult to perhaps say, particularly on the second one. I think I can take the guess on the first one, because I don't think...
A lot of people have been guessing.
Yes, because you are able to see someone who perhaps does some of those things that, the leader of FF has been saying. So you look at someone like Dr. Mzwandile and say, is he the one? But the fact of the matter is that Dr. Ndlozi is very public about his dislike of former President Zuma. I mean, even if we were to leave EFF, I don't see him going to MKP. So that is quite interesting. Yeah. So I guess they say politics can be very tricky, and I think this is what we are being subjected to. And remember, in December, EFF is having an elective conference, and a lot may still happen between now and then.
You have a mammoth task ahead. We wait for the second name. Thank you, Mzwa. I appreciate your time. That's my colleague there, SABC News political editor Mzwandile Mbeje. We move on to this. uMkhonto has been appointed as the new Community Development MMC for the city of Johannesburg. This follows the immediate dismissal of Kabelo Kwamanda. Now, Kwamanda was released from his executive duties by Mayor Dada Morero after being placed on special leave last month. His firing comes after he was granted bail on fraud charges relating to his alleged involvement in a fraudulent funeral policy scheme. Morero stated that the decision aims to ensure uninterrupted service delivery amid calls for Kwamanda's dismissal from political parties in Kusatu in Gauteng. At the same time, the Democratic Alliance in Johannesburg has rejected the appointment of Councillor uMkhonto as the new MMC for community development in the city. Now, this, of course, as we just told you, after MMC Kabelo Kwamanda was released from his duties with immediate effect by the mayor, Dada Morero. Now, Kwamanda, who also had a stint as the city's executive mayor, has been on special leave for 3 weeks now. And this follows his alleged involvement in a fraudulent funeral policy scheme. And he was granted bail in the Johannesburg Magistrates Court on a fraud charge last month. And DA's Johannesburg caucus leader, Belinda Kaiser Echizonjoku, says while they welcome Kwamanda's dismissal, they're worried about his replacement. All right, let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll take a look at the township economy, but also at the same time, we're looking at the toxicology reports. And of course, remember, this is against the backdrop of the number of children that we have been, seeing either being killed or going to hospital when it comes to, this alleged food poisoning, the suspicion that they are consuming something that is wrong here. But we do know organophosphate has been, of course, cited as a chemical, a toxic chemical that is said to be behind all of this. So why are we still seeing it out in the streets? Why are people still using it? We'll talk about that in just a moment.